Hello.
Does this work? Am I
Yes, you're
hi?
audible.
Cool. Hi, I'm EurekaTPK. I also have Morg is also there.
Yes, the your itch username. All right. Um, it's here. Let me just try boosting your audio a little bit, and I'll go ahead and start with our first question. So, can you tell me how you decided to make this game for the jam?
Yeah, it was well, I was working with Twine and I knew I would be working in Twine, and I think I wanted to find a way to link things and I wanted to play with time. So the time traveling toilet, it's linking two moments in time in the apartment. So the first thing I did was I wanted to build this apartment space because I wanted to have a just layout of the whole build that you'd be exploring, and then
Mhm.
I duplicated that and was just playing around with the two different stages of it in the sort, and just how those two would fit with each other.
Okay, nice. So you went for I don't know. I guess a lot of people's first inclination is to take the theme very literally, but you really tried to take it in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, because writing is probably my main skill when it comes to game design. I wanted to tell a story, so the first thing I had to figure out was what story would work, and the
Hmm.
story I chose was how memories connect and how time and past meets future.
Hmm. All right. I'm doing my best to both listen to what you are saying and also to read what is on screen here. It's a little challenging, but yeah, I think it's all the more important that people try the game out for yourselves. Here we go. Make sure you actually have the opportunity to read all of this. In fact, let me go ahead and zoom in so it's at least legible on screen here. That's better. All right. And so what was your development process like for the writing?
Um, Honestly, it was very spur of the moment. I was just trying to get words out very fast. I was just sitting in there going, I need to set up these. I knew sort of what the puzzles were going to be, what the objects were, and I just had to create these on the just stories, had to set up the room, had to describe the apartment because the first thing I did was design the layout. So I just had to write it and bring it to life.
Hmm. So did you start with a like a framework of what the entire story was going to be, and then like fill in moments throughout, or did you just kind of build as you went?
I had a vague idea of what it was going to be. Me and the other developer who's worked on it too, we were just discussing that it was more about building what puzzles, what specific things in the world you'd explore with. So we had an idea of that you'd be going into the past department and finding things that would reappear in the future, and we were
Mhm.
just trying to figure out what those would be, and that kind of came and flowed into what the story turned out to be in the final product.
Nice. I'm predicting here that when it says that you lost track of your jacket, it seemed to have vanished. I have a feeling that it's because you're about to take it now.
There's definitely, yes, that would
Mhm.
be the ultimate reason it disappeared.
Yeah, so I guess when you're not working on a game jam, do you consider yourself more of a like a planning writer or a discovery writer?
Plant like, what do you mean by that?
Oh, I don't even know if those are the exact terms, but I just think like a discovery writer is very just kind of like you're writing, coming up with stuff as you go, whereas a planner, or sometimes heard of it like as a architecture, like an architect versus a gardener. An architect will like plan out their whole story and then like plan out their whole chapter and then plan out a whole scene and then write it in and then like, sort of like outward in or inward out.
Uh, I get what you're saying now. It varies. There's a couple projects I have that I've planned out so much that it's almost overwhelming to consider starting them. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say most times when I just write something, it's just flow of the moment, and then I'll see how I can take it. So I'll just write lots of little things and see how they can become joined together. So yeah, more discovery.
Okay, nice. So can you again, I'm sort of trying to adapt my usual stream questions into ones that are more applicable to a game like this. So Can you recommend a useful shortcut or something that you use in your writing process?
Um, I would say, well, if it's writing for a game like this for Twine, it's different than just writing normally. But I think a lot of it is just being able to get a lot of being able to be concise,
Hmm.
being able to not go overboard. And I'm sure to some people it still seems a bit overboard, but being really careful that your descriptions are very small and can convey a lot in very little. Because when people are, you don't want to just drag them down with excessive descriptions of things unless it's important or very much the centerpiece or focus. So a
Hmm.
lot of the room descriptions, I just was working to be just concise and clear and paint a good picture.
Hmm. We've got a good question from Zero Iguana asking, planning a text-based game, how even?
I have a good writing software that kind of lets me have different tabs open and like folders into different writing. And a lot of times I'll also just build it out kind of like Twine does, but in a document where I'll have the what you would click and then I
Hmm.
write different paths and I just have like all these different little tiny text blurbs under what you would click.
Nice. So, what is the writing software that you use?
It's a very basic one. It's a different version of like Word.
Hmm.
It's just called Scrivener. It's just gives it's accessible for people who want to do a lot of like screenwriting or novels and gives more folders so you don't just have one super long Google document,
Oh yeah,
which
that
is a pain
sounds
to
very useful.
navigate. Yeah.
Treaty of Paris, thank you for the follow. Yeah, I mean, can you maybe post a link to that? It sounds interesting.
Yeah, let me
I
go
also
find
want to
the
make sure I'm getting the spelling of that right.
Yeah, it's a weird I had to go double check the word before saying it. Um just I'll,
All right. Yeah, exactly. We're just in the process. I will post a link into the chat once I get one. There we go. Scrivener. Yeah, it looks like your guess was correct. Spell like it sounds. Wojciechowicz. If anyone gets that joke, please leave a comment because I would be, you know, again, you win the bonus points. All right. Uh, Sorry, are you still there?
yeah, I'm still
Okay.
here.
Okay, great. So, as I said, I'm probably not going to get much further in this text adventure here, but I'll make sure to post it again at the end of the interview so that others can give it a try. And um, yeah, is if anyone has any questions in chat they would like to ask right now, now's the time to do it. Um, but in the meantime, can you elaborate a little bit more about how you plan out? Um, text adventures are famously like non-linear. So, is it really just a matter of utilizing the software, or do you have any other way in which you use to keep track of these sort of things?
Well, for this one, I definitely was pulling up some of the boss keys Mark Brown videos because the Zelda puzzle design is a
Mm-hmm.
kind of very there's a lot of similarities there. So just the idea of what you can access first. So I did pull out those little labels he had made and was using those as reference for how people would be able to navigate through the world and what they'd have access to at given points. And the person who helped me, who did more of the programming than I did, was also in charge of just doing a lot of it on the fly that I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't like already written out. So there was some of that just flowing and figuring out that maybe possible inconsistencies or holes that might have popped up and smoothing those over.
Nice.
Because I think a lot of it ultimately is also in playtesting because you can try to plan, but
Mm-hmm.
like there's always someone who's going to go and do it the completely wrong way, and it's sometimes hard to anticipate those ways. So it's always just good to play it a lot
Yeah, of
too.
course. And that's the other thing with a text adventure game is that you need to spend a lot of time establishing the player's like spatial understanding in the world because otherwise basically just get lost without any visual reference.
Yeah, it's difficult, and I've definitely learned a lot from this. Definitely got a lot of feedback. Definitely things I can do to improve later. We installed. There's a hint system in the game where you can gaze into the toilet bowl, which was very helpful because a lot of people did get lost, and that's definitely something that I could do a better job at, like writing and conveying what's important. But there is a hint system for people who might have missed some of those things.
Okay, and you can
That's another
access.
staple.
Yeah,
Needing hints.
absolutely. Yeah, just a little thing that, like, if you have something you can sort of keep track of with the game state, something that you can just say, like, at any point, can you just give me a hint of, like, look up what's the game state right now, and then just like a little sentence that prompts you, like, oh, have you checked here? Maybe give that a try.
Kind of what the hint system does,
Mm-hmm.
but we also had plans for an inventory check that you could check what you had on you, which is something that comes in handy, but we did not have time to fully implement it. But that sort of thing, we definitely were considering it. It's just game jam
Mm-hmm.
constraints made it a bit difficult. But yeah, the bowl kind of prompts you to do things that might advance the plot
Mm-hmm.
of the story.
Yeah, all right. Um, well, as I sort of said, I don't think I'm going to be able to properly parse playing this at the same time as having a conversation, but yeah, I'll have to come back and play this one off stream before I give it a rating, because I wouldn't want to be rating it based on what I've played because I haven't been giving it my full attention. So I'll have to do that later down the line. But do you have any plans for this game going forward?
Sure yet. I mean, in theory, like I kind of wanted to do something with the game I submitted last jam, and that never went into that never ended up happening. So I don't want to say it and then not really go
Mm-hmm.
through. But I definitely want to keep working with text adventures. So even if this isn't the final idea, like this type, this genre is something I really want to continue doing and expanding on in some capacity. So in theory, yes. Time traveling toilet, I'm not sure.
Sure. Well, if you do have any other future projects that you'd like, others' feedback on, please feel free to submit them via the Discord. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to, or any other projects that you'd like to promote?
The person who helped me with the programming, shout out to her. I couldn't have done it without her. Just made the process easier. And just overall, just happy to have done it. And everyone who has already played it and rated it, and Mark Brown for having it on his stream for 10 seconds during yesterday's stream.
Oh, did he
That
just
was
say that, like, oh, no text adventure games?
Yeah, he
Mark,
did. But
come
I was just
on.
happy it was there. He did the same thing last year. I'm just like, yes, I was there. I made a cameo. My life is complete. But
That,
yeah.
what's to say that a text adventure, like, just, oh, I'm sorry, are you allergic to reading it out loud? Like, if I wasn't having a conversation with you right now, that's what I'd be doing.
I
Um,
think he might be. I think there's a very good case. But Mark Brown in streams is very chaotic, so
okay.
I'm not.
Well, every stream is a little chaotic, as was evidenced by what what everyone patiently sat through, not just half an hour ago when my whole stream went down because my partner started downloading games in the other room and we didn't realize how badly that was throttling our internet. So, you know, oops. Anyway, we've got some wonderful conversations going on here in the chat. First of all, Dr. Tronic is saying, what a unique approach to the jam. I completely agree. Witty Adrian saying, yeah, I haven't seen another text adventure. I certainly can't say that I've seen one, although with like 5,800 entries, yeah, I bet that a very small percentage of them are text adventures. I certainly haven't seen another one.
There was one other Twine game I spotted, a couple of like Renpri games, but I found one other Twine game, and of course,
Okay,
Solidarity had to leave a nice review, but
nice.
haven't seen much others than that. They're very uncommon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we have a question coming in from Lemophius. Maybe there are plans to continue it as a visual novel. I think this style fits the game quite well. Had you given any consideration to that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of comments of people going, "Oh, this would have been so much better if it was more of a point and click adventure." I
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and I think there's definitely an urge that a lot, especially now, text adventures are less common. So a lot of people wish there were visuals or wish there were like more of it. And I also would love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm art in any capacity is not really my skill set, so that would take finding some people who'd be willing to and figuring out how to do that. And Twine itself is not really built for any sort of visuals. It can have some things, but it's just not in the full sense of a
Mm-hmm.
visual novel as much. So it would take probably a separate engine and a lot of different developing. But it's definitely something I want to do. Like making a point and click adventure game would kind of
Mm.
be a dream come true in a lot of ways because it's one of my favorite genres. But
Nice.
I also think there's a lot of merit to just a text adventure because it calls back to a really cool type of game. So,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
remember as a university project, we had to make a text adventure game, and you know, by that point, I had been making games in Game Maker with like visuals and everything for the better part of like 8 years. So when they said like, "Oh, you got to make a text adventure game now," I'm like, "So "Are you serious? How many? Such a huge step back." But yeah, we were writing it from scratch in C++, so that was the exercise, and I was like, "Okay, well, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right." And I called up our team and I said, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to play the only example of a text adventure that I have seen before, but I think it's a good example of it done right. And that was the Homestar Runner Thy Dungeon Man series, which unfortunately they're all made in Flash, so I don't know if they're going to be accessible anymore. But those were a lot of fun, in case anyone happens to be familiar with Homestar Runner. It seems like there's a bit of a sort of back and forth here because someone else had asked if Twine supports visuals, and someone else in the chat mentioned yes, but it
It's
seems like in your experience, maybe no?
it's a yes. I've seen Twine games with visuals. You can also do backgrounds, but it's difficult,
Mm-hmm.
and I will confess that my own level of understanding Twine, while decent, has not really reached a point to comfortably do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible, but Twine it's got a lot of different variations, a lot of different yeah, it's just not something I've been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it. I've seen Twine games with visuals, but they're mostly just little insert images or backdrops. They are really secondary to the
Yeah,
main games.
I mean, I guess since like fundamentally the game is like an HTML framework, so I would imagine you could do a lot to like inject your own custom code on top of that. So maybe that's how some people are doing it, but I think by that point there are better tools. There's mention of one called Yarn. Yes, I had seen that one for Unity before. Um, yeah, absolutely. Today I learned of Twine Game Engine. Oh yeah, if you haven't heard of it before, I would say Twine and RenPy are two of the more well-known like text-based game engines. I think RenPy also has better support for visuals as well. I haven't used it myself. I haven't used either, so I don't really know too much about it. But yes, um, definitely check that out. So, um,
Runpry is great. Yeah, a lot of visual dating sim games go in there.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Well, I think that's about everything we have in terms of questions for now. So thank you so much for joining me on the stream. And
Yeah, thank you for all your great questions. This was fun.
absolutely. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and hopefully talk to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.